Scary story. I like. Write comments. Let's get started. Diana's icy fingers twitched. She whispered insistently, like a broken record. The same thing, Mom. Mom. Her voice sounded not just tired but exhausted. Childish capriciousness mixed with stubborn, frightening persistence. I moved, as if getting out of a sticky, viscous fog, with difficulty separating my eyelids. The bedroom was in this twilight, only pale. Ghostly moonlight from the window penetrated into the room. It weakly illuminated. Fragile as a reed, the strength of my daughter, drive away the remnants of sleep. I sat up. What happened, sunshine? What is it? She muttered. Mom, you need to go. There. She hesitated, as if choosing her words. I saw something there. What do you mean? I tried to smile, but we didn't listen to faces, as if about a village or what time it was, and she put Rila on the nightstand and activated the screen. 3 hours 15 minutes AM. The numbers burned with sharp neon and light in the thick darkness. I rubbed my eyes again, trying to dispel the remnants of drowsiness. My head remained heavy, filled with lead, the fragments of a dream. What else was vital in my consciousness seemed cloudy. I dreamed of a bunny. What's the matter? I asked. No. Yes. But Diana hesitated, fiddling with the edges of her pajamas. I didn't see it in a dream. Mom, it was already when I woke up. I woke up and wait a second. I reached out and lightly touched her shoulder. Tell me calmly. What happened, darling, and start from the very beginning. What kind of nightmare is this? You were scared. To tell the truth, I asked just to calm Diana down, to help her collect her thoughts, to throw out the night's fright. I knew the answer in advance. The poor girl had been tormented by the same nightmare for several weeks. A shadow in the corner of the room, a whisper from behind the door, hands that reach out to her from the darkness. You've probably already guessed. What conclusion did I come to when my daughter said she saw something? It was probably just a continuation of her nightmare, but her next words made her freeze. A wave of doubt rolled down my spine. It wasn't because of the nightmare. Mom, Diana hesitated, shifting her feet and rubbing her palms. I saw something in the kitchen. It seems to me that there's someone down there on the first floor. As if, in response to her eerie words, there was not a quiet creak, but a long, mournful sound, as if someone was slowly drawing a bow along a taut string. My daughter shuddered, her small body tensed like a compressed spring, but I didn't pay any attention to it. My old house lived its own life, emitting nightly sighs and groans. Wooden floorboards creaked in the draft, pipes were forgotten in the walls, and the people upstairs weren't exactly quiet either. If I reacted to every sound, I would have gone crazy long ago. Now I was more worried about my daughter's words, and I was trying to understand what she actually saw. It took me a few lingering seconds to realize it was a video camera. That's the thing. A month ago, I bought a tiny camera to see what the dog was doing. When we are not at home, it can be connected to an application on the phone. The camera, located on a small stand, allowed us to keep an eye on the pet, even from a distance. Our chocolate Labrador, Ellie, was perhaps the only creature capable of making us smile. I decided that my daughter would be pleased to see her even when we were apart. Watch how Ellie sniffs every corner of the kitchen. It's funny to rummage through her toys. The miniature camera even had a compartment for treats that could be given remotely by pressing a button on the phone screen. Diana liked it. She felt like a little sorceress controlling the dog from a distance. Sitting on the bed, I tried to shoot a logical chain of events. Diana woke up frightened by a nightmare, and unable to fall asleep again, launched the camera application on her phone to somehow calm down. Perhaps she decided to admire Ellie sleeping in the camera. The night vision mode was creepy, so she could see the kitchen even in complete darkness. But obviously it didn't work, and I can already guess why the night vision mode in this application was scary. The image was unnatural, grainy, in gray-green tones. In tones it looked just like in cheap horror movies. No wonder it scared the child even more. Listen, honey. I tried to speak slowly and softly. I'm sure it most likely doesn't mean anything. You're talking about Eli's camera. You're right. I saw something on the screen. Diana nodded timidly, without raising her downcast eyes. That's good. Believe me. I watched that app myself at night, and I wouldn't be surprised if it scared you. Everything there is so dark. It's really like being in a creepy otherworldly world. And if you also saw Ellie there, then probably her eyes were glowing, somehow strangely. And no, Diana interrupted me, shaking her head. Ellie is sleeping. Mom is in her basket. My voice became barely audible. A whisper, almost soundless, like a breath of icy breeze. There was a shadow there. Mom, I saw a shadow slip past the camera, as if something flashed in front of it, and for a moment blocked the entire view. Only I opened my mouth to calm her down, to convince her that it was just a sick person's game, imagination. As a new noise was heard downstairs, this time not a quiet groan, but a sudden sharp crash from the kitchen. The sound was so deafening that a cold wave of fear pierced even me. The steps of the stairs groaned softly under my feet, and I descended slowly, trying to step silently, but the wood was old and creaked under my feet. Just in case, I frantically grabbed the pepper spray can, that was lying on my nightstand. If there really was someone there, say, a thief, I wouldn't meet him with empty, trembling hands. My palms were sweaty, a natural reaction to the situation itself, running around the house in the middle of the night. If you asked me, I would probably say that the noise was most likely nothing. Ellie most likely hit a chair and dropped it, and the shadow that Dinko saw on camera was just a child's fantasy. It played out against the background of fatigue and a nightmare. The thing is, Diana was too impressionable a child. I knew this for sure. She dreamed too much, imagined it too vividly. All sorts of fables, especially in the dark. With these thoughts still restlessly spinning Missia in my head, I carefully went down, stopped, listened. The house was completely silent. Not a sound from Dinka above, not the slightest rustle from the kitchen. If Ellie dropped something, she had already calmed down and fallen asleep. I wanted to turn on the light downstairs, but I changed my mind. Intuition told me that it would be better this way. Even if the door to the kitchen is closed, the light from the hallway will still fall on the doorway if there really is someone there. He will notice me ahead of time. Yes, there is no one there. An irritated voice of reason sounded in my head. Don't be an idiot. You are no better than your daughter who is in a commotion over stupid nonsense. Reason was right. I understood this, and yet, walking along the narrow and dark corridor, I felt a growing anxiety. An icy chill ran across my skin, causing the hairs on my arms to stand on end. The air smelled distinctly of damp earth, and something elusively rotten that made me nauseous. Halfway across the kitchen, a treacherous creak creaked under my foot. I froze. In the moonlight, my hearing strained again. The only sound was my own heartbeat, deafening like a caged bird. I ran my hand over my face, feeling the heat on my fingertips, forced myself to take another step toward the dark kitchen door. Then another. There it was. Very close. The wooden panel of the door loomed in front of me like a tombstone, enough to stretch out my hand, to push Venov, grab the icy handle, and push the door into the frightening unknown. Come on. What are you waiting for? Mies whispered, an inner voice, urging me to stop being afraid. Open up already. Open up. To get back to bed as soon as possible. Irritation with myself pushed me forward. I grabbed the handle sharply, turned it and pushed it. The door creaked open and tensed. There was something wrong in the kitchen. I realized it right away, barely crossing the threshold. Something was wrong, but I couldn't figure out what exactly. Visibility. It was almost zero. The faint light from a street lamp penetrated through the windows at the back of the house, but it was barely enough to dispel the darkness. And yet, my eyes began to discern the outlines of objects on the left. The vague silhouette of a refrigerator standing quietly in the darkness, and behind it a dining table. On the floor next to the table, an overturned chair lay, and a thought, here it is, the source of the roar. Lightning flashed through my head. Ellie, this is Ellie, flashed through my consciousness. She probably touched the chair. Here is Ellie. And then it was as if I was struck by an electric shock. The thought of the dog was the first chilling hint that something was wrong. Usually as soon as I step a couple of feet into the kitchen, Ellie immediately rushes to greet me joyfully. Always, even if she is not waiting for me at the door. The first sound I hear is the cheerful stomp of her claws on the cold tiles. But now, standing motionless on the threshold of the kitchen, I did not hear her at all. And a second later, when my vision finally adapted, I understood why Ellie was sitting motionless in the middle of the kitchen, like a statue of black stone, absolutely motionless. She sat with her back to me in the dim light. Her eyes were like dark glass beads. They stared into the darkness without blinking. They were fixed on something invisible to me, but obviously frightening her. Ellie, what's wrong with you, girl? Quietly, I called, trying not to frighten the incomprehensible numbness, not to disturb the ominous silence. I stepped into the kitchen and shuddered from an unexpected icy chill, and then another chilling sensation pierced me. The unbearable cold in the room was not just a shivery cold, typical for an old house. This was real frost cold, as if in an open freezer. I physically felt how the icy air burns my face with my right hand, and slowly turning around, I finally saw the ominous source of the grave cold. The back door was wide open. A black demon shone behind it, like an insatiable eye. The wind from the street whistled like a prophetic whisper. Ellie, still sitting motionless in the middle of the kitchen, suddenly growled, a low guttural growl, full of an incomprehensible threat, like an animal warning. I slowly turned to her, but as soon as I took an uncertain step, I heard a voice that stopped me. No need to stay there. I screamed in surprise and turned around abruptly. Diana stood in the hallway, flooded with moonlight. She looked like a disembodied figure from a nightmare. Her white pajamas hung like a funeral shroud, too big for her small body. The girl's eyes were wide open in silent horror, like the glass eyes of a nocturnal animal, frozen in place, as if paralyzed. I stared at her motionless, and she trembling like an aspen. Fox pointed with his hand towards the motionless Ellie. Don't touch her, Mom, please. It's too late. He's already here. He's shackled me. Sticky, paralyzing fear. My heart froze in my chest, stopping beating as if it had stopped forever. I don't know what to say or do. Paralyzed by fear, driven only by blind instinct, I frantically turned on the bright light in the kitchen. The room was instantly filled with harsh light. This should help. A crazy thought desperately flashed through my head to dispel the growing nightmare, put an end to all this night delirium. When you're scared enough in the dark, turn on the light, and everything should immediately fall into place. Fear the unknown. Ugly shadows. Everything should disappear without a trace. But this time it didn't work. The bright light only tore an even more terrible reality from the womb of darkness. I told you, Mom whispered behind me, Diana's chilling, wheezing voice like an echo from behind an open grave. I told you to go out and he's already here. I didn't answer. I couldn't utter a word in that terrible moment, when the bright light mercilessly flooded the kitchen. I could only concentrate on two things. The first was Ellie's eyes. They were looking at me. Not seeing, empty and meaningless, rolled up so high that only the whites of their eyes were visible. They were covered in red veins, like blood vessels had burst from something inhuman. This was the worst thing. It was right under my feet on the cold tiles of the kitchen floor. I saw wet footprints. They stretched from the open door straight to the motionless dog. Wet, barely noticeable, inhuman footprints, like the paw prints of an invisible beast.